We are continuing what we began yesterday in the Dvar Malchut, a speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1992. And in it, the Rebbe asks a question, why are we reading about Abraham? The main, if we want to call it the accomplishment of Abraham was preparation for the giving of the Torah. It says that the world is 6,000 years. The world will be 6,000 years, 2,000 years of confusion, 2,000 years of Torah, 2,000 years of Moshiach. The 2,000 years of confusion, that was until Abraham. The 2,000 years of Torah, that was begun with Abraham. Now, Abraham was about 400 years before the Jews received the Torah. So how can we say that, 400 years is a long time. How can we say that the 2,000 years of Torah began with Abraham, when the Torah, in fact, was given way after Abraham? So the answer is that Abraham prepared for the Torah. He prepared the world for the Torah. The whole idea of the Torah is revealing God in the world, revealing God in every detail of the world, revealing God in everything that we do, everything we see, everything we say, because God is creating everything. And the Torah is the blueprint and also the workbook and the manufacturer's instructions on how to make this world work properly and to feel God in everything in the world. And Abraham was the preparation for this. He prepared for it. He prepared us by self-sacrifice, by this. Okay, but the fact is so we got the Torah already. We already received the Torah. And when we received the Torah, God changed the world. He made a permanent change inside of us. So what do we need Abraham for? What do we have to read about this for? And so one answer, you could say, well, you read it, it's just history, it's just Jewish history. What's wrong with that? We can be proud of our forefathers, and that's a good reason. So the Rebbe said that could be a good reason, but the fact is that's not what the Torah is for. The Torah is historically true. Yes, that's true. The Torah is definitely historically accurate. God did create the world exactly 5,700 and what it is, 85 years ago. That's true. All that's true. And that Abraham really did. There was a person called Abraham, and he lived exactly when and where the Torah tells us. But that's not the purpose of the Torah. The Torah, you could have other people write history books, right? The purpose of the Torah is to tell us how to serve God better. And Abraham's job that he did was already accomplished. Abraham's job was to receive the Torah. We received the Torah. Why do we have to learn about Abraham to know how to do something that was already done? Well, what's the purpose? Doesn't make any sense. So the Rebbe says like this. None of that, and like I said, when God gave the Torah, there was a permanent change inside of us. So we don't have to prepare for this change. It's like a person that gets married, and then his wife sees him, buying a new tuxedo. What are you doing that? Preparing for the wedding. We already got married. What are you talking about? Yeah, I know, but I'm still preparing. I like, the preparations were really wonderful, and I'm preparing. The wife will think that my husband's out of his mind. Either there's something, what's wrong? You have yourself another lady you want to get married to? No, I'm going to get married to you. We already got married, didn't we? I know, but I like to prepare. What are we reading about Abraham for? We're preparing. Abraham helps us prepare for the receiving the Torah. We already got the Torah. We already happened, and it's a permanent change. Okay, that's the question. Answer. Yuvam Hektim, we can understand the answer by preceding a similar question regarding to what is told in our Torah portion about Abraham. In this week's Torah portion, it begins with Abraham leaving where he was. He lived in a place called Or Kasdim, and God told him, leave. But he left. So he left. Where did he go? Abraham went to Israel. That's where God sent him. The land that I'm going to show you. Eretz Asher Areka, the land that I'm going to show you. The promised land. Havtachat Eretz Yisrael. God gave Abraham the promised land. God personally, God gave it to Abraham and his offspring. Like we said yesterday. Nowadays, when the United Nations or whatever, the Palestinians, whatever you want to call them, they come and they say the land of Israel belongs to us. We were here first. As you say, true, you were here first. You were here first. But God gave it to Abraham. God. We're not here because, any sort of logical, historical, legal, international accepted reasons. We're here because God gave it to, if the world doesn't accept God, that's not my problem. God gave us the land. God really exists. You don't believe in God? You will, because God is creating you. That's the job of the Jews, is to bring everyone to appreciate the fact that God loves you. God is creating you. And this same God gave us the Torah, and this same God gave us the land of Israel. And God promised it to Abraham. Where do we see that? Here, this week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, God tells Abraham, leave where you are and go into the promised land. Since that Abraham left where he was and he went into the land of Israel, this is giving of the land of Israel. God promised Israel to Abraham and his offspring. And later on, it says, who was Abraham's offspring? I mean, Abraham also had Yishmael, right? And God says, no. This is next week's Torah portion. Yitzchak yikarei l'chazara. Only Yitzchak. Yitzchak, from him on, that's Jews. Chozer al atzmo. And this story repeats itself. B'osafa b'kol shana, and it especially repeats itself every year. We read this in the Torah. When we read this Torah portion, that God gave the land to Abraham, as every year when we read it, it's strengthened. If so, we can ask a question. Since God already gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people, to Abraham 4,000 years ago, like it says, to your offspring I will give this land. I gave, not I am giving. Natati, I give it in past. I already gave it to you. Harei hu shalem, if so it belongs to you. Yerusha hu lachem me'avotem. It's an inheritance for all generations from Abraham. Until Dvar said this is relevant to halacha, to law. What's Jewish law? The land of Israel, muchsakati. The land of Israel is our possession. Even before the Jewish people conquered it with Joshua. Ubafrat, and especially according to the Meforshid explanations, that by means that Abraham, he walked into the land of Israel. He walked the whole land of Israel, that by means of that, he actually physically took possession of it. So he took possession of it in addition to the promise and God made. So Abraham physically went and took possession of the land of Israel. Now this is already, 2,000 years after the world was created. Now this is after the world was created. So there had been non-Jews living there all this time. And God said, I'm giving it to you. And it became his. He said, let's fortify this acquisition, go to the land of Israel and walk in the land of Israel, the whole entire place. How much more so after the Jewish people, they went in and they took over the land of Israel by means of Joshua, Yehoshua. And afterwards with Kibusheni, when they came with the days of Ezra. After the first temple was destroyed, they came from Babylon and to rebuild the temple. That was called the conquering by Ezra. That was the second time. So if so, the Jewish people have 4 reasons, if you want to call it, that the land of Israel belongs to them. Number 1, God promised it to Abraham. Number 2, Abraham actually walked in everywhere in the land of Israel. Number 3, the Jewish people, they took it over by means of Joshua. Right? Joshua took it over when the Jewish people got out of Egypt. Right? They came to Israel, they took it over, and they took it over again by Ezra 4 times. But it just fortifies the promise that God made to Abraham, whether Jews are living there or not. It still is our house. It's our place. Okay. If so, if we read about this, this has already been done. So why do we have to read about it every year? Why do we have to read about it, Sipur Parshatenu, that Abraham went out of his land and he went to the land that I showed you, and God gave him the land of Israel. These are things that happened already in the past. This is not to remind us what already was. Good, that's history. And the Torah is not just a history book. The Torah is a practical book. What is practical to us about knowing that Abraham left and he came to the land of Israel? What's practical? What's the practicality? What are we supposed to do? Right? We can say, remember, here it is in the Bible, remember it. Good, remember, it's written once. We don't have to keep reading it every year. And especially when, like the Rebbe says, the Torah is not just there to tell us what happened. It's tell us what's something we must do. What are we supposed to do? We already have the land of Israel. What are we supposed to do? Kush is this is even a stronger question in the later generations of exile. In the first generations that the Jews were in exile, temple was destroyed. Maybe we could say that this idea of Lech Lecha me'artzecha, to the land that I showed you, this is a spiritual. Aseh kan Eretz Israel. The Jews are spread out all over the world, and wherever they are, they have to try to make that place holy. Make Israel wherever you are, until God brings all the Jews back with the temple. So we have to go out of your own desires, etc. Lafoch et chutz la'aretz, to transform outside of Israel, that it should be holy like Israel. But after so much work of the Jewish people, this is when we were driven out of the land of Israel, almost 2,000 years ago. And the Jews have been living outside of Israel, and they've been sanctifying the places wherever they are, right? Jews were living in England, they got kicked out of England. Jews were living in Spain, they got evicted. Jews were living in Portugal, they got evicted. They were living in France, they were living in Italy. The Jews got evicted from almost every country where they were. Why? Because their work was finished in those countries. And the Jews have been making these places holy and saying blessings and doing commandments and learning Torah hundreds of generations in exile. Even though that it's true, this work of exile is not totally completed. Why? Because the Moshiach has not yet revealed himself, but we are found harbe me'od me'ever la'atchalat ha'avoda b'kibush chutz la'aretz l'hafichato. We're way past the beginning of work. Beginning of work, that began, let's say, when the temple was destroyed. Okay, but that's already done. And how much more so we're found now? A lot of in the Eber, and you should Sarichem Letzeit. We're also, we don't have to go out of our land anymore. There's also a lot of Jews that are living in Israel. L'lechet el hainu lasos avoda asokan Eretz Israel. We've done all this work before, and why read about it every year? Every year we have to read about it, unless we say that it's just history. We're learning history. And the Rebbe's insisting, no, it's not so. There's a practical message for us right now regarding the land of Israel to every single Jew right now, practical. Not just what happened back then. What's the practical? The explanation is like this. So that's why we read it every year. Something practical. What's practical? Here we go. Now, this, by the way, is very relevant because the whole movement of Zionism, especially religious Zionism, came to say that, or regular Zionism says that forget about Judaism, forget about this. We have the land of Israel, that's enough. We have a new identity. But religious Zionism came and said, no, it's not so. We're going to come and they just opened up the land, the physical. Now we're going to add the spiritual part. We're going to add the spiritual part, and then the land of Israel is going to be okay. So we're living in the land of Israel, and that's it. And we just have to do these spiritual things, right? The spiritual things, okay. But according to them, what's lacking is just that the Jews should just come here. That's all. Just come here. And they'll be religious, and the country will be a religious country, and that's it. That's it. And so therefore, this is like the question the Rebbe is already asking. God gave the land to Abraham. We've already lived in Israel. We've conquered the land of Israel. We've conquered it already 3 times. If you count Abraham going 4 times. So that's it. We put our stake here. It belongs to us. It was just a small problem is just to move here, but the spiritual work has basically already been done, right? And that's the question the Rebbe is asking. Isn't that true? The spiritual work is good. Why do we have to read about this every year, all the time? What is it telling us? The new thing we have to do. We have to go out of ourselves. We have to leave where we are. We have to go to the land of Israel. It's not such a big deal that we have to read about it in the Torah. It's just a simple, sell your house, come to Israel. That's all. Why does that have to be written in the Bible? The biblical part is already finished, right? The biblical part is already finished. We've been given the land. It belongs to us. So the Rebbe is saying, no, you got the whole thing wrong. You got the whole thing wrong. It's as necessary, and the message that Abraham is teaching us is an earth-shaking message. And it's a message that has to be done right now, and it's never been done before. You did it last year. That's not it. We'll see what it is. Let's see. When God gave the land of Israel to Abraham, the Brit Batarim, in the covenant that God made between the pieces. We'll see in this week's Torah portion. And God said, I promise you the land of Israel. And this was when Abraham was 75 years old. So Zaracha, to your seed, I will give you, to your offspring, I will give you the Holy Land. And what does it mean? I already gave it. It's yours. Hunatan lo b'poel. God gave him, actually, in that covenant, 10 lands. The land of 10 nations. If you look over there, God said, I'm giving you the land of Israel. And what is the land of the Girgoshi, the this, and the Keni, and the Kenizi, and the Kadmoni? So God gave Abraham 10 nations, which that includes like all of Jordan and a lot of Persia and something like that, a lot of, Iran. God gave it to a portion which is like twice as big, let's say 3 times big as Israel is now. But in fact, the Jewish people didn't conquer it. Revealed, and actually, God only gave them 7 nations. Joshua only conquered 7 nations of the 10. Vashlosh, and the other 3, it says, is going to come in the future by means of the Moshiach. Maimonides brings it. It's a law, Judaism. But from God's point of view, Natan Akal, God gave everything at once. But to actually manifest in the world, it comes in levels, stages. Alterich, like it says, Kafishu Nogea Lakivush Zion Ortzos, like it was when Joshua took over the 7 nations. How did Joshua conquer the land of Israel? I mean, he had God with him, and they conquered in a miraculous way. They fought battles, nobody even died. Right? The Jews didn't die. Miraculous death. But it took 14 years. Shalom Yazem Miyad, it wasn't immediately, like in the time of Abraham. Abraham didn't immediately get the whole thing, but it took time. There were many different levels. It says it took 7 years to conquer, and then it took 7 years to divide it up, and they were still fighting in the days of King David. They were still fighting. So there were 3 nations that they never conquered. Joshua never conquered. God promised them to the Jews. They belong to us. They're our possession. God gave it to Abraham, but we never lived it. We never took it over. Even if you want to say that this was just a promise on the future, and actually God did not really give it to them. He only gave to the Jews 7 nations, the 7 nations that Joshua conquered. In the future, Mashiach is going to conquer the other 3. But nevertheless, Hari Muvin, it's understood, Shirushat Gimel Artzos, that the conquering of these 3 nations, this is relevant to the complete settling of the land of Israel. Even if you want to say that God didn't actually give it to Abraham, he just promised it. However it is, until we get all of the land of Israel, we haven't really fulfilled the promise of God to the Jews. The promised land we have not gotten. Shall call Eretz Israel, the whole land of Israel. As to Tosef, then there will be added on these three lands, Befrat, and especially that Shem Ruba the Minkar, Betoch Asar. There's seven, and the three that are missing, this is a recognizable three. It's not just another little part of, it's just okay that we were missing one or two cities. These are like huge areas that is missing from the land of Israel, and only the Mashiach is going to bring. From this is understood, seeing that now, even in the time of Joshua, and in the time of the first temple, and the time of the second temple of Ezra, the Jewish people only took possession of the seven lands, and not the three that were missing, the Keni and the Kenizi and the Kadmoni. It says, what is this? Moab and Edom, and I forget. Okay, the Kafi, according to, it's relevant to the law in the cities of refuge, like the law of the Rambam. There's a law of cities of refuge in Israel, and it says that the Jews are supposed to make three cities of refuge in Israel and three on the other side of the Jordan River. And then when Mashiach comes, there'll be three more. It's a law. It says in the Torah. In the Torah. What are cities of refuge? If a Jew kills another Jew, then he immediately runs to a city of refuge and he's safe there until the trial. Then they try him. If they find out that it was a total accident, sometimes he goes free. If they find it was because of negligence, but it wasn't on purpose, then he has to stay there for the rest of his life, or until the Kohen Gadol passes away. If they find out that the person committed murder intentionally, then the person is put to death, which was very, very rare. It was very rare that people were actually put to death. But nevertheless, there were these cities of refuge, and the cities of refuge were in the land of Israel and on the other side of the Jordan River, the lands where what is it? Anyway, there were 2.5 tribes that took it on the other side. They didn't go over the land. They took possession of land on the eastern side. Is that right? Yeah, the eastern side of the Jordan River. They took this. Okay, but in the future, there's going to be three more cities of refuge, and those cities are going to be in the places that are going to be conquered by Mashiach. And it's a law in the Torah. It says that God will add on three more. And the Rambam, Maimonides, even brings it that this is a proof that there's going to be Mashiach, that there's going to be an addition to the land of Israel. So the question is it really an addition, or is it just a completion? Here the Rebbe is saying that it's a completion. Like the Rambam says that 6 cities, there are 3, Moshe took 3 of them on the other side of the Jordan, and 3 Joshua put in the land of Israel. And in the days of the Melech HaMashiach, says the Maimonides, it's a law. In the days of the Melech HaMashiach, they'll be added on 3 more lands to these 6. Where should they be added on? Where? In the cities of the Keni and the Kenizi and the Kadmoni. Until that happens, the land of Israel is not totally conquered. Oh, so if so, we see Alde can feel like it is relevant to the land of Israel itself, so it is also relevant to the Jewish people that live in the land of Israel. Even after the land of Israel was conquered, only in the first temple were all of the Jews living in Israel. Except for that, in the second temple, all the Jews weren't living in the land of Israel. There were always Jews that were outside. That only when the land of Israel, only when all the Jews are living in Israel, for instance, there certain laws can be done. For instance, the laws of the Jubilee, the 50th year. Even more, if all the Jews are living in Israel, so there's different levels. So it's understood that even though that according to the law, like for instance, the laws of the Jubilee year, the 50th year, all of the Jewish people living on it means all the Jewish people in that generation, like they were in the time of Joshua, for instance, in the majority of the time of the first temple. But in the future, when there will be all of the Jews, Mashiach will bring all of the Jews to Israel. That's one of the goals of Mashiach, is to build the temple. And when the temple is built, then that will draw all the Jews to the land of Israel. But Nosaf La'asarat HaShvatim, in addition to the 10 tribes which are going to be added on, which says that they were exiled from the first temple, right? About 150 years before the first temple was destroyed, there came King, whatever his name is, Shalmaneser or whatever, and he took the 10 tribes that were living in the northern part of Israel. He put them into exile. And he said he put them on the other side of this river that throws up rocks. It's a whole story, but they're really there. There's people that look for them. They've been looking for them for hundreds of years. But also the Jewish people from all the generations. Aliyah, Allah, call Eser Artzot, that the completion of all the Jews going up to the land of Israel means that they all have to go to all of the 10 lands that God promised. Then will be a true completion of all of the Jews living on all of Israel. And so what do we see? That why do we read about what's going on with Abraham? Didn't we already conquer the land of Israel? Didn't we already receive the Torah? Haven't these things already been done? Says the Rebbe. No, we have not yet conquered the land of Israel. There's 3 whole huge areas, which are maybe the size of what Israel is now, that have never been settled by the Jews. Never. They've never been settled by the Jews. God promised it to Abraham, and no one ever took it over. Who's going to take it over? The Mashiach. Only Melech HaMashiach is going to take these lands over. And coincidentally, Mashiach will also bring all of the Jews to the land of Israel. So all of the Jews in the whole world will be in a complete land of Israel. And this has never happened. This has never happened. And even when all the Jews were living here, like in the time of Joshua in the 440 years before the first temple was built, and a lot into the first temple, right, until the Shalmaneser took away the 10 tribes, then all the Jews weren't living in Israel anymore. Took away the 10 tribes. So let's say 500, 600 years, all the Jews were living in the land of Israel. It still wasn't the whole land of Israel. The land of Israel wasn't whole. Oh, if so, now we can understand why the learning and reading, Abraham going out of the land of where he was to the land of Israel, is so important now. It's not just something that happened in the past, it's something that hasn't happened yet. The Inyan Kinyan Oretz, this whole idea of conquering the land of Israel by means of going into it is and walking through the whole thing is relevant also now. Because all the time that we do not have these 3 lands, the Kini and the Kenizi and the Kadmoni, and together with this, we don't have also the completion of all of the Jews living on all of the land of Israel. And it'll be all of the Jewish people from all of the generations. That's what Mashiach is going to bring. The Geula Amitit Vashlema. It says even the raising of the dead is going to be in the land of Israel. All those Jews that are buried outside of Israel, it says that there's tunnels. That's what it says. There's tunnels that go under the land and the world, and those bodies will go through those tunnels and come up in the land of Israel. In any case, all the time that is not actually happened, that we have all of the land of Israel, including these 3 lands that God promised Abraham, and all of the Jews are living here, including all the Jews from the past generations. So if so, we're still conquering the land. We haven't conquered it yet. Cave and Shin, then will be also the conquering of the 7 nations has not been complete. We have to get all 10 nations. Therefore, it's still demanded that we have to go from our land, that the Jewish people in all of the places where they are will go from outside of Israel to the land that I showed them, and they will take a portion. Then, only then will the Jews really take possession of the whole entire land of Israel. Like the Rebbe once said in a speech, that it could be that in Russia, there are more Jews in Russia than all of the world together. But they just don't know that they're Jews. And God just arranged it miraculously that, these people still held on to their Judaism. And that they even have an inkling, at least they know that their grandmother, their great-grandmother was a Jew. And they remember because it's just been erased from them. Right? That's such a big miracle that Gorbachev took down communism, because another generation, it would have been lost. Right? People wouldn't have known anything. It's really quite amazing. And that's one of the works of the Rebbe, of the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe, right? The fall of the Iron Curtain. The Rebbe said it was the work of the previous Rebbe, his self-sacrifice. However it is, Mashiach is going to be the one that's going to do these two amazing things. Number one, conquer 3 lands. And also, by the way, he's going to conquer them not necessarily by means of war. Those nations will willfully join the land of Israel. They'll willfully want to be part of the mission, something like it was in the days of King Solomon. They'll realize that it's better to be under the rulership of the Mashiach than to be under the rulership of Khomeini or whoever they're under the rule. It's just pure destruction, right? Because that I will wait every day that the Mashiach is supposed to come. So therefore, the Mashiach is going to make big physical, political, what do you call it, geographical changes in the world. I don't know, geographic, maybe it's the wrong word, but actual factual changes. Therefore, the Jewish people have to wait that Mashiach will come, and it'll be actually finally fulfilled what God promised to Abraham, that I go from your land to the land that I will show you, all 10 lands. And to add on, and now, by the way, what's so important about the land of Israel? What's the big deal? Why do you have to be the land of Israel? We live here. We live a smaller place, a bigger place, right? It's such a big thing. You get a bigger place, a smaller, because the land of Israel is holy, and every inch of it is holy land. And the more land there is, the more holy it is. It's not just real estate. It's not just another area in the world for tourist attraction or something. It's holy. It's a whole different level of reality that the land of Israel is supposed to be. It's like the Holy Temple. People go to the land of Israel and they feel happy. They feel happy and they feel empowered. They're here in the world for a purpose. And the bigger the land of Israel, the more purpose it screams out, the bigger the sign is. To add on that this is relevant also in our generation and our time. Like we said many, many times, Kula Kol HaKitzim, all of the projected ends have arrived. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's the leader of our generation. He announced that we've already done tshuva. We've already shined up the buttons for the parade. And we've done everything we have to do. Our generation is the last generation of exile, and automatically it means it's the first generation of the redemption. And the redemption means there's going to be big changes in people's minds and hearts, and also physically in the world. But it has to happen. According to this, so it's understood that this is a time, so this is very propitious now, that we have to prepare actually for Lech Lecha Me'artzecha Le'eretz Tereka. In any second, Mashiach is going to come, and all the nations will say, take the land of Israel, take our land, take Iran, take Iraq, we're just messing the whole thing up. The land is too big for us. Take your part, take the whole thing. And the Jews will say, I don't want to take the whole thing. I want to take exactly what God gave to us. And then immediately all the Jews will act in the way that God gave to them, like Jews. Immediately we'll get the whole entire land of Israel, all of the 10 lands, that they are a portion. They are the inheritance of the Jewish people forever, an inheritance thus from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, from the time that Abraham made this covenant with God. The novelty now is that we will receive physically these 3 lands and in a way of Darkei Noam but Darkei Shalom. It will not be by means of war. Mashiach will be a man of peace. The whole entire world will realize that it is to their benefit, physical, actual benefit, economic benefit, health benefit, family benefit, to be led by the Mashiach. Who cares about them? I mean, I've heard this so many times that the Rebbe cared about the non-Jews more than their leaders cared about them. We see the Hamas, they send these people in. It's a good thing to die. We're looking forward to dying, the best thing in the world to die, right? Mothers say, I'm so proud, all of my children, they died, right? They all got killed. They went to that's sick. It's a whole sick the way of looking at things, right? And in Judaism, according to Judaism, non-Jews are infinitely holier than their own religions say. And God is creating everybody. God is creating everyone. God personally is creating everyone. Every non-Jew, whether you believe, whether you don't believe, it doesn't make any difference. Since that in that time, in the days of the Mashiach, there won't be any wars, but all the nations themselves, they will give these lands to the Jewish people willfully and pleasantly. That's what we're waiting for, and that's what we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Should happen any second. I don't know why it's not happening. Okay. You have to remember, the Rebbe said this 30 years ago.